learned from the lesson. Live in the hills, but I still get a spread. Started with a little, but I still reinvest it. Fear how I feel, then you feel like a blessing. I just want the lesson, I just want protection. I'm up and I'm down, but they sound like progression. Farmer never plans if he waits for perfection. Finger to the down, hold it down, we gon' get it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got your watch list coming in on October 28, 2020, and the stock market is going to go crazy the rest of the week. We already got to see a little bit of crazy out of Microsoft earnings, but what they reported with today, it showed us and told us a lot, so we have to talk about that. But you still are going to get Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and a few other big names tomorrow. A lot of big names in the morning like Boeing, so we're going to see what happened. However, we saw a lot of what we were expecting, a little bit of a range and a little bit of that earnings shuffle we talked about. So we have a lot to talk about. The election is still heating up and there's still some stuff there. We got more updates on stimulus. You guys got your answer now. We'll talk about that briefly, but we are still in the middle of one of the most exciting weeks. So we have a lot to talk about. I got the plays, I got the keys, everything else we're watching tomorrow, as well as the plays we made today and some of the earnings we set up on. So let us not delay. You guys know what you need to do. Drop your thumbs up on the video. Make sure you're subscribed. And if you don't know, we are live Monday through Friday, 30 minutes for open. It's the first link in the description and it's pinned in the comments. We better see you there in the morning. It's free $99. It costs you nothing to join. YouTube.com/the-stock-market. You can post the plays, see the plays, watch the watch. Let's come to life. And yes, if you want to listen to Econ Rap and learn about the last 5 to 7 years of economic history in a nice, simple flow, then yes, we're the place to be, and we're glad you're here. And the most important thing you need to do, post your watch below. Let us know what you're looking at. Got any plays, comments, remixes, anything, post them below and source that info. Shout out to Chad, baby. So right off the bat, today was a little bit interesting in the sense we got Microsoft after hours. We did hear about the stimulus. There was a little bit of that feedback loop. However, today kind of showed that the earnings shuffle prevailed. We stayed in a range all day, and then now the market moved after hours. It was able to kind of break out. And then here was the Microsoft report. And now we got a little more information on Microsoft to see how that's going to play out. But for the most part, we stayed within a very, very tight range all day today. You got some talks about stimulus, some positive comments, but it ultimately led to the market not really reacting at all. So we got to see that this whole move, kind of putting it into context, this was all kind of preparing and getting ready for earnings. So that's a positive sign, at least for us, to know where the market is responding. So that was the first part about today. Even moving forward, it's clear that earnings is going to be what we're going to be relying upon. Even tomorrow, you're not getting all of the big companies after hours. So you might even be stuck in another range tomorrow. We'll see if there's any continuations. But then Thursday, the market will be kind of allowed to move like we saw here today. So that was the first part. Here's Microsoft earnings. And then this is where it starts to get very, very interesting. It told us a lot. It's going to tell us what to look at. We could be proven wrong by the end of this week. However, what you saw with Microsoft was very, very weird. It did end up lead to the market dropping after hours as they started to sell off a little bit. However, this is a tiny move. This was nowhere close, almost 10 times less than what was expected. Really, the stock didn't move at all. And this is what's fascinating because their report was amazing. So we talked about SAP yesterday. What does that mean for the market? But now let's look at Microsoft. They had such a good report, but they didn't move at all. So that's weird, but it's kind of indicative of what's going on here with this earnings and what we're seeing, where a lot of these companies that have been growing and doing good, if they have high expectations and are beating, they're not really responding. If anything, if you have low expectations and you beat, you're getting rewarded. But most of these bigger companies have such high expectations. Even SAP's earnings, like I said, they warned, but they weren't that bad. It led to a bigger drop here, and that's kind of what we're seeing here with Microsoft. So the question is, how is that going to play out through the rest of these earnings? It's kind of making me a little bit scared here of companies with good expectations, because even if they blow it out of the water like Microsoft did, they may not move. Even as we watch the report, this was just a very muted earnings reaction, even after hours, as you see this follow through. So I'm excited to see how this plays out, but this is telling us how the market is responding. So we have to watch Apple, Facebook, Amazon this week, and we'll see, because they have high expectations. So what we're seeing today with Microsoft is kind of me showing that the low expectation stocks might be the winners here. So watch out for that. As far as even tomorrow, again, you are going to get bigger earnings. Thursday, that is where we're going to get the real bigger reports, and I think that could change anything. But what I'd say even for the rest of this week to watch and look out for is any political developments or any sort of jabs to heat up before this end of the year or pretty much end before the election. We did get that confirmation on the stimulus. So now Congress is pretty much taking their break here. So now the idea of stimulus before election is literally out the window. We've been talking about that. Tomorrow would be that hard deadline, but it's clear we're not going to get that. But like we've been talking about, the key is to watch how the market responds. And realistically, the market didn't respond one bit to that yet today. We'll see if it has a chance, but it seems like earnings is the big focus. Finally, in the name of everything heating up or coming to the end of the year, if we get any news, I want to see if we potentially hear from Powell this week or anything from the Fed coming into the election. But if anything, even after the election, the contested nature, how we're looking at it, how we're seeing kind of earnings in this market, even what Microsoft told us, I want to watch for Powell. And I think that will kind of be our next move and pivot point that will allow the market to kind of pick a direction or even confirm a direction more or less. So with that being said, I think it's going to be a crazy rest of the week. Jim Cramer says this is the Armageddon. A lot of eyeballs are here. I reminded you guys on stream today, a lot of us have been waiting for this all year. This is a very, very critical moment. So it's going to be an exciting week, but that is pretty much it. So let us get into the plays. So right off the bat, I have a few plays. These are two plays that I made, one that I didn't. The one I haven't got into is Ralph Lauren. They have earnings, I believe, tomorrow or Thursday morning. And I'm trying to just make sure I get like upside a little bit or to kind of balance it out. Like I said, I like Spotify. I have the leaps. I've had the Microsoft leaps. I still have those Apple leaps as well too. But you'll see a lot of the plays we did, I have been going for the cheaper put. And now this is kind of validated by what we saw with Microsoft, because again, some of these plays, it seems like if they do good or they have this high guidance, it's more easier for the market to get disappointed with high expectations than not. So that being said though, I want to balance it out. I like retail performance. RL has earnings this week. I want to look for cheap plays. Not fully decided on this, but I am going to be watching them. As far as the other two, Google put and Twitter put, I made two different plays on these. As far as the Google, this one was a little bit harder to play, and this one's just very, very far out of the money comparatively. It's almost like $400 out of the money. So that's about like a little bit more than 20%. And Google's not even pricing in. Google's pricing in like 3%. Surprisingly, Google hasn't moved in a long time, and this really isn't expected to be a big earnings mover, especially out of all the FANG. Google really isn't the one that pops off. So they have large spreads. It was expensive. I got one of the 12/10 puts for November for $1.08. Going to be holding that through. I think Google might disappoint the most. Even Microsoft's earnings says they saw a drop in ad revenue. But like I said, they've been kind of the biggest FANG lagger, more or less. So that's why I was willing to take it. And even the nature of this earnings, I'm willing to do it. I'm just trying to make sure I keep my budget in check and not spend too much. That's something we've been talking about here. So $108 for that play. I sold out two of those Intels. Remember, we bought these last week. That was one of those cheap earnings plays. We got these at 15 cents a pop. So I had five of them, sold two on this account, one on the small one at about $1.80, $1.84. Grabbed five more Microsoft plays, spent about like $50-$60 on some more of those weekly puts. But even then, those are really far out the money. And Microsoft barely moved, so those are going to get clapped. Then I sold two more of those Boeings. Remember, we got those on Friday for 50 cents. Still had three more left. I sold two of them for $1.29 because they report tomorrow morning, so I wanted to secure that. I didn't want to gamble with a bigger position, so I trimmed it, holding one of those left. And then I bought three of the October 180 calls at $20 a pop, spent $60. And since we made so much money on this put play and was able to make it free the day before, got some profit, it pretty much just allowed me to pay. I put a $60 of the profit there. Now we have an earnings strangle on both sides. And then here is the Twitter play. I got 10 of the Twitter 32 puts at 8 cents. I talked about it again, make or break it moment. And now with kind of the bar being set high by Snapchat, I think it's just going to really be one of those make it or break it moments. There's high expectations, especially when some of those platforms, Snapchat wasn't one of them, but the platforms that usually generate a lot of money during elections, they're going to have higher expectations. So the higher the expectations, the bigger the disappointment is what I'm looking at. So grab 10 of these 32 puts at 8 cents. Again, spent $80. The idea is still try to keep it small. Then finally, we got an ACAM play, did another $10 play, $65. All of these are out of the money. All of these are lower probabilities. But you guys are seeing, even though some of these big earnings, they're not moving, but when we are seeing moves, it is happening. So the idea is not waste too much money and not get clapped. So those were the first 3 plays for today. As far as everything else, I will be watching Intel. I still have 2 more of these contracts left, so those are up a lot, and Intel's at a crucial point. Watch AMD as well, too, in relation. They did an acquisition or a merger today, and their situation was weird. I thought they were going to report after hours, but they ended up doing it before hours, but then they had their earnings call after. It was very, very weird, but watch them, too. I think the merger kind of got in the way of everything, so watch for like a delayed continuation. Watch AMD, RL, like we said, Boeing, Mozzie, I really like. They moved a little bit. This is a more obscure company a lot of people don't talk about, but they reported they did good. Watch them for a continuation tomorrow. I really like them. Watch Facebook, Apple, Amazon. These will be key. And now, kind of like you saw with Microsoft did its thing tomorrow. Depending on how the market moves and opens tomorrow, watch for FANG to kind of position and see if we get another one of those earnings shuffles, and see also, or try to see, the impact of some of those earnings continuations like Microsoft. So watch them. Watch Walgreens, and Walgreens reminds me of the dividend stocks because we have a deposit coming up here very, very shortly. So get ready, and then also just pay attention with some of these earnings, the Dow and all that. Watch for a value growth rotation and see how that plays out in winners and losers. So watch them. Finally, as far as the global macro, everything going on, I think we're at an interesting point. We talked about a lot of stuff today. We talked about a lot of history, tin, all that, but I think it's interesting. A lot of people are bringing up TLT. I disagree with it right now. I think there's a lot of other stuff going on. It is making a move, and we will see, but I really think, if anything, you could watch the dollar. I mean, Bitcoin is kind of telling right now. That's pretty cool where it's at, and that's kind of important, and it's letting us know the whole inflation thing. But anything election-wise, I'm going to go with GLD. If we do hear from Powell, then you could open up the TLT. So that is your watch list, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you're hydrated, healthy, ready to go. Make sure you post your watch list. Make sure we see you there in the morning. I need the armor on. I need the helmet shining. I need you to remember everything is useless if you don't believe and have faith. You got to believe that something better is coming, baby. But it's game time. The Colt loves you. I love you. I'm going to see you in the morning. Let's go.